I will admit that I would have classified myself as a selfish person my whole life. Just very not thinking of others outside of my family unit, you know. We take care of our own type of mentality. That has changed. My love for my fellow man, as you could say, has really changed since going through this journey with Maya. Just the love and compassion that I feel, just the way things pull at my heart is just very different than what it had been previously.
These are very real, honest words from a parent who wants the world to see her little girl for what she is. And she is amazing. I'm Seth Carnell. With me is Josh Veach, and this is the Go Shout Love podcast. Josh, we just spoke with Angie and Ryan. They are the parents to adorable little Maya. Do you like the conversation? Did you have a good time?
I did, yeah. It's always great to talk with families. And, of course, Angie and Ryan were no different. It's great talking with them.
Okay, I want to throw you a little curveball, all right?
Okay.
Because Maya sounds like quite the character. And I want you to describe Maya based on what you heard from the family. Like, in your point of view, how do you see Maya?
I see her as while someone who's definitely joyful and silly and inspiring as the things that's how she's described by her family. I think she is also she knows how to control a room, or if that makes sense. Like, I could see her just being the type that is just captivates the people she's around. We talk a little bit about the family dynamics of her being the youngest. And I think there's a certain element that comes with being the youngest child that regardless of your medical complexities, when you're the youngest child, you know how to step into the role of being the youngest child. And I think that's probably true of Maya.
She also sounds like a girl who likes to push buttons from time to time.
Yeah, I think that's that's fun. That's the fun of being siblings. And it sounds like she knows how to do that, but she also it sounds like she has a great relationship with her entire family. And so, I think you're going to love those that are listening. You're going to love getting to meet this family. Exactly.
And what I love about that is when we describe these kids, it's describing the kid as a kid. You know, they're not different. This is what any kid would be like, and Maya has that exact same personality, and she's living life and she's enjoying it. Which leads me to kind of a little bit more serious note. One of the things that we try to do at Go Shout Love is bridge the communication gap between these kiddos and their families and those who observe it from a distance. And one trick with that is knowing what to say if you're a person who's watching this from a distance. You don't want to offend, but at the same time, you want to include. What piece of advice could you give to people who want to step out of their comfort zone, but also not offend?
That's a great question. In fact, we did a podcast interview many episodes ago. So if you're listening and you're new to the podcast, look back for an episode with Tina B, which she gives some great tips on this topic especially. But I think from my perspective, what I've learned is that you let the families lead. You, from family to family, what's consistent is they want their children to be treated just like any other child. So if you are engaging with someone that you don't know, you talk to the child just like you would talk to any child, and you say hi, you say hello, you ask them questions, whether or not they can communicate verbally or not, whether you don't know if they can communicate verbally, assume that they can, assume that they fully understand everything that you're saying, and then let the parents respond. If the child is unable to respond on their own. but then let that, you kind of lead with just treating them the exact same way you would anyone else. And recognizing, and this is a topic that came up and is something that's actually really a place of passion for Angie and Ryan, is that the child is not their diagnosis. The child is not defined by what they can or can't do, what the doctor or medical profession says their future probably looks like. That is not what defines the child. And so if you go into that in any conversation with those things in mind, I think it's still difficult. Sometimes you have to be very careful, because I've found myself in that situation where you're not exactly sure how to word something because you're trying to be cautious. But if your posture in a relationship or in a conversation is one that is authentic and is respectful of the child and of the family's situation and doesn't assume anything, then I think you're going to be okay. Those folks, for the most part, are going to be open to have those conversations. And then you just let the family drive. If they want to talk more about what's going on in their life and medical issues or other things, then you let them drive that. If they don't, if they kind of shy away from that, then you don't push it. But I think that's one way to kind of start the conversation and then see where it goes.
And it's all a learning process also. Even, you and I have met a lot of these kiddos. Each time we learn like a new way to say things or a new way to phrase things, it's all learning, and it's all good learning, healthy learning.
Absolutely. Yep.
The last thing I want to touch on, it's a question that I've gotten on occasion, but so at Go Shout Love, when we feature these families, we're not just featuring them to, raise funds in a generic way. We talk to them about a specific purpose for them. Why do we do that?
Because I think one of the things that makes us unique as an organization is that we're telling individual stories of families and kids, and we're trying to meet individual needs. It's not a blanket. It's not a blanket offering that we do. It's not just to help with medication. It's not just to send people on a vacation. All those things are valid, but we want to be 100% responsive to wherever the family is in the moment and whatever's most important for them and the biggest need at the time. So if that's a ramp in their backyard, if that's gas money to and from appointments, if that's repair costs for their van, or if in the case of Mayah, this is going to help them make a trip to Delaware to see a specialist, a spinal specialist. In fact, the same facility that Ivy, a recent kiddo that we talked about, they're going to be going to the same specialist and same hospital in Delaware for that treatment and consultation. That's what's the biggest need for that family at this time. And so, that's what we are. I think that's what makes what we're doing unique, is that it's very much meeting the families exactly where they are for whatever is most important in their season right now.
I will say it's also, and not that this is the point, but very rewarding when you get on Facebook and you see those things being accomplished. There's purpose behind every T-shirt, every item that we sell, and to see them go to Delaware, to see the ramp or the van being fixed, it's exciting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tangible. It's a very tangible impact for these families. And but what's really cool beyond that are the words of encouragement. The amount of people that then start to follow that family story on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. That encouragement, those words of encouragement, the additional support that comes over time through encouragement and prayers and things like that, that's just as much, if not bigger, part of what we do, is that we're raising awareness for this family's story and helping them, helping others engage in their life, and hopefully be a support system for them ongoing.
So there's two things that if you're listening to this podcast you can do, and they're both centered around subscriptions. The first one is to subscribe to this podcast. I imagine if you're already listening, then you're already kind of invested into getting to know either this particular family or families like this podcast exists to help you grow further in that so that you can engage more and so that you can be more approachable and just learn better and to know these stories and to share these stories. And the second subscription, Josh, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we have a few different types of subscriptions on through the website. So the first one is a T-shirt subscription where you can actually get a T-shirt every month, and each T-shirt is inspired uniquely by that month's child. And then the proceeds during the month go directly to the family, to whatever that family's need is specifically. A second subscription option is we have a donation subscription that allows you to give to families every month. So if you want to support, but you're not a T-shirt person, or maybe you've had a lot of T-shirts and you're just not interested in that, you can still be a monthly shouter and subscribe that way. And then the third subscription option is also a donation option, but it is specifically for helping Go Shout Love, the nonprofit, from an operational standpoint. So you can make a donation if you just believe in what we're doing and you want to help us cover the cost to do this every month. There's a subscription option for that as well. And so you can do all that through our website at goshout.love. And and there are tons of other items for sale too that also will benefit that month's families. So especially now in April when this is launching, you will be supporting Mayah with every purchase or donation through the site during April.
Excellent. Thank you, Josh. Thank you all to our listening right now. And I promise I won't delay it any further. Here is Angie Ryan talking about Mayah.
All right, Ryan, Angie, welcome to the Go Shout Love podcast. It's so great to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We are super excited to be introducing the world and kind of sharing your daughter's story. Your daughter's Mayah, and so April, we're shouting love all month long for her. And so to kick us off, for those that are listening and haven't had a chance to meet this amazing little girl, what do we need to know about her? Tell us about her and her personality.
She has a very big personality and a small little body. So she loves to entertain. She's just very silly. She finds a way to make you laugh. She knows it and she remembers it. And the next time she sees you, she's doing that again because she wants to bring joy to everybody, and just joy shines from her face.
Ryan, what is it like to be Mayah's dad?
It's a lot of things. It's fun. It's interesting. It's entertaining to watch her. It also can be challenging at times when she's going through her issues and her struggles and battles to stay healthy. And it can be heartbreaking at times, and especially watching her recover after some serious surgeries, and she's just kind of laying there in the hospital bed, not being herself. But for the most part, she loves to have fun. She's almost a born entertainer, and we get a front row seat every day, so it's wonderful.
Oh, what a great perspective on parenting and the front row seat. I love that. Mayah is such a cool name. How did you guys come up with her name?
Unbeknownst to us, her sisters, Amelia and Elise, have Hebrew meanings for their name. We just chose them because we liked them. I actually intended to choose an I name because we have an A and an E, and I thought, well, if we have another girl, we'll go with I. But when we realized the meaning of the Hebrew names of our other children, when we found out very early in the pregnancy that something was wrong with our daughter, we were very intentional in choosing her name. We wanted it to mean something and to be a statement about her. So we chose Mayah, which in Hebrew means close to God.
Tell us about her siblings.
Mayah is the youngest of 5. She has
and she's 5,
brothers.
Right?
She's 5, yeah.
Okay.
So she has 2 older brothers. So they are 22 and 19. So we have children all over the spectrum here. And then she has her sisters who are her best friends, and they are 9 and 8 years old. That's Amelia and Elise, and her brothers are Mason and Landon.
Awesome. And how would you describe her relationship with the other kids?
She loves to interact with them. She loves to play with her sisters. The older brothers aren't necessarily home all the time because they're grown up and living their own lives. But when they do see her, she loves to interact with them, and she loves to make them laugh, silly faces and teasing and just playing with them. But with her sisters, they love to play together, and they get along very well. And the older sisters are very good with her. They understand Mayah has some challenges, and they respect those challenges, and they know her limitations. And so they play together very well. And they just, if you didn't know any different, they were just being silly little girls a lot of the times.
She does have special signs so in sign language, which Mayah uses ASL signing. With her trachea, it is difficult for her to speak orally, but she does. It's just maybe not in a way that everybody can always understand. So we've always encouraged signing as well. So in the sign language world, you get to make up signs for names. So we've created fun signs for all of her siblings, and she will look at their pictures up on the wall, and she will sign their names and say their names, and she really enjoys saying their names. And then her sisters, it's actually been amazing to watch, because we were concerned, as parents, that they were going to feel slighted with this life. Our life is different than the lives of their friends, and maybe we can't do some of the things, and we have to tell them no sometimes. And we were worried that maybe they would have some resentment toward Mayah because of that. But oh my goodness, not a lot, not at all. They are amazing, and they've just embraced this life, and they pretend like they're her nurse, and they take care of her, and it's just been amazing.
Is that something that you intentionally put things into place to make sure that they could have special times or things that you were able to do with them to help offset that fear? Or how did you address that as parents?
I think we first noticed it when Mayah was born. She was in the NICU for 6 months. So when we did finally get to bring her home, and we were all together again as a family, because, instead of me being there all day long and Daddy going there in the evenings, we noticed with our oldest daughter, who would have been 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
4 or 5 at the time, that she was very clingy with us, and she would make comments about being a family, and we're all together, and now we're a family again. And so that's when we realized we needed to be purposeful in making sure that they felt special and not neglected, and we didn't spend too much time with Mayah, and we did just try to do special things with just them. And when we have nursing for Mayah, to be able to go out with the girls and just do stuff with them that maybe we wouldn't be able to do if we had Mayah with us. Yeah,
I think that's something that a lot of people will benefit from hearing, because that's a hard thing for parents to navigate, is to they have a unique set of challenges that come when they're having a kiddo that's going through things like Mayah has had to go through. But I think what's so cool, and this is relevant to Mayah and kiddos like her as well as siblings, is that kids are so resilient. They are able to take on. They're so strong, and that's really cool that they've been able to rally around and kind of feel that love, but also be able to step in and help care for sister.
They are her biggest fans.
That's awesome.
It's a balance to find time for the family as a whole with Mayah, but then it's also a balance. So the 2 older ones and the boys too realize that not everything is all about Mayah. It's all about, it's more about trying to focus on the family, and it's a balance.
Although Mayah thinks it's all about Mayah.
You mentioned when we were talking earlier, you made a comment about, I don't remember exactly how you put it, but especially related to some of her demands when it comes to eating and being a princess. So it sounds like she has fully embraced her youngest sibling role. Like she's kind of like, she's taken that on and she's good with it.
Yeah, she is the baby of the family for sure. She's her whole life, she's had people tampering to her, like being on the ventilator, she's tethered to a machine. So, it's like you have to chase her around because she's very active. So there is just always somebody right there, right beside her for her whole life. And she knows that, and she will take advantage of that. And she's, yeah, she gets her way with her nurses. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Everybody had a hard time saying no early on, but we're all slowly saying no more often.
Learning to put in those boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah. We've touched on some of the things that impact Mayah's day-to-day life, but I want to jump back to kind of the beginning of her story and her birth and the recognition that something wasn't playing out as expected, which caused her to end up, like you said, being in the NICU for 6 months. So tell us just real quickly about her birth and what was noticed up front and what kept her in the NICU for that amount of time. Sure.
We actually found out really early in the pregnancy that something was wrong. It was at the 16-week anatomy scan. I mean, that's a whole lot of the pregnancy to have that worry. And it was definitely my darkest times, with just dealing with all of those emotions and the uncertainty. We were told she would not survive, that her body was not compatible with life, mostly around the fact that her ribs were too little and they wouldn't allow her lungs to grow enough to support her life outside of the womb. They didn't really have an answer as to whether or not she could survive the entire pregnancy, but they were very confident and told us that she would not survive after she was born. So, I mean, it's just it's the worst thing you can hear as a parent. So
Sure.
Those were just really, really dark days for us.
And that is what they told you, that expectation or that prognosis at the 16-week that
it wasn't right away at the 16-week. It was actually at the 18-week follow-up scan, went for a second opinion with their top sonographer there, diagnostic sonographer. He was the one that gave us that devastating news.
How did you go through the rest of the pregnancy? Where did you find support to go through that unknown season, knowing that that's what they've set the expectation for you for? How did you navigate those days and stay strong and stay committed to providing a healthy pregnancy for your daughter as much as you could?
I would say I failed miserably at that the first following weeks after that diagnosis. I was in just a deep depression and very dark and just crying all the time for those first few weeks and isolating myself, which was the worst thing I could have done, because then you just get inundated with all those terrible thoughts. So it took my husband being my rock and my strength to pull me out of that darkness. And I was actually on a family vacation, our annual family vacation with my husband's family, and we were on the beach, and I was just like, I don't want to be sad anymore. And we had given her a name at that point, and I wrote her name in the sand, and it was like I stared at it, and it was the first time that I felt hope, and I felt like she's real. She's not just this, death sentence that they've given over her. Like, she's real, and I'm going to believe in her. And so that's just kind of when the fear was removed and hope filled, and we just we had ultrasounds every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks you just go in with all this hope that they were wrong, or there's been a miracle and she's healed, and just constantly having that hope. And eventually the hope caught up with us, and at one of the ultrasound scans, I think it was around week 25, the sonographer looked at them and came in and was like, is this the same baby? And he's like, you know what? She might have a chance. So that was enough to just carry us through. But getting through that darkness, that was all the credit goes to my husband. He was my rock.
Ryan, those are pretty strong words of encouragement and appreciation. And I'm sure as a fellow husband and father, I'm sure it didn't feel like you were being helpful or successful at that time. I'm assuming it's a season of helplessness on your end. Is there? I don't know if there is a more a greater feeling of helplessness than seeing your wife go through pregnancy, when you can try to be supportive, but ultimately everything's completely out of your control. How did you navigate that and try to be, like, as she said, her rock?
Well, for myself, I was struggling inside as well. I just tried not to let her see it. I tried to be strong for her and let her lean on me and try to guide her through it. I believe I was strong in my faith at the time. I leaned on my parents a lot. And just having that support system with them, they are close by, and they really helped. And praying a lot and going to church and just praying that for Mayah to survive. And week by week and ultrasound by ultrasound, there was a little more hope each time, and then it was never over till it was going to be over. And in our mind, it was never going to be over. So probably the scariest moment in all of that is when Mayah was actually born. We went into labor. We had to drive an hour to the hospital, and I'm speeding down the highway as fast as I can because my wife's water had already broke. And then we got to the hospital, and a couple hours later, Mayah was born, and she came out, and the doctor put her there, and I clipped the umbilical cord, and we both looked at her, and her big, brown, beautiful eyes were kind of looking up at us, and she had the most peaceful look on her face. And it was a very surreal moment in time, which seemed like it lasted for minutes, but in all reality, it probably didn't last more than 2 seconds. And they took her away, and it was almost a miracle. It was a miracle that they were actually able to get to secure an airway in her. They intubated her down her mouth, and it was a miracle. The doctor on call was able to get it done, and that doctor there saved her life that night. And here we are 5.5 years later, and our little girl Mayah, still proving the doctors wrong.
Still defying the odds.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, the night she was born, I have a terrible memory, but that night, it was 2 a.m. That is engraved in my mind, looking down at her face and her big brown eyes looking up at us. And, babies cry when they're born, but she didn't try to cry. She didn't grimace. She was just in this state of she was an angel. She was just completely tranquil and such peace. And it was like this wisdom and just radiant, I don't know. It was like she knew she needed to be calm. And there's just this presence in the room that was keeping her calm. And if she had been tense and crying and doing what newborns do, we had been told that there's no way that they would have been able to intubate her. She had a scope of her airway about 2 weeks after she was born. And that ENT doctor told us that in the right controlled setting, with her under anesthesia and with all the right equipment and everything being right, the right environment, he pulled out that endotracheal tube to assess her airway. And he's like, I struggled very much to get it back in. And I have no idea how they got it in the night she was born. They shouldn't be able to. And he's like, I know you are people of faith, and I am telling you, she's a miracle. So she's our miracle Mayah.
So she goes right to the NICU from the night she's born, and you said she spends about 6 months there. What ultimately led to some sort of medical explanation as to what was going on in her body, and what did doctors tell you when that sort of diagnosis came about?
Those first few days were just basically full of uncertainty. Nobody expected her to live. So we just kind of took each day. I remember walking into the room every morning thinking, is this going to be the day that they're going to tell me that she's not going to survive? And nobody had any clue what we were dealing with. And they were just trying to get her ventilator settings dialed into the right mode so that she was, expelling the right amount of CO2 and taking in the right amount of oxygen. So it was just every day making these little tweaks and little changes to get her lungs functioning at the right place. And it was at 2 weeks that we were transferred to a children's hospital because they realized that the airway was just too severe and that she was going to require a tracheostomy. So we were transferred to that hospital. The tracheostomy was done. At the same time, they gave her a G-tube as well for a permanent feeding line for her. And it was just waiting to get her stable. They did do genetic testing, but everything came back always negative. They couldn't find what was going on with her because what she was presenting was just so unique. It didn't fit in a box. There was no category that defined her. So that's actually still the case. Even though she has an actual diagnosis, they had to kind of stretch it to get her in there because she presented just new things that have never been seen before within that diagnosis. So she's just incredibly rare. She can't be defined. She's just Mayah. So that time in the NICU, not having a diagnosis and really not knowing what each day was going to look like, I really think the goal was just to get her stable, to get her comfortable with the trach and the right ventilator settings so that we could take her home. And when we were discharged at 6 months, I really believe that they didn't think she was going to survive long at home. It was more like, we've done what we can do. Let's just let her go home and be with her family for as long as she can. And it's 5 years later.
Getting a diagnosis can be, I think for some people it's important and for others it's not. For some it's some, I think it's some level of a deeper understanding or a little bit more of a hope because maybe there's a pathway forward. But for others, diagnosis is a label that isn't something that you really want to pay attention to. And you guys have made a very conscious choice to be very careful about how you talk about the challenges that Mayah faces medically and to make sure that any diagnosis is not a label for her. Can you talk through the thought process and how you guys have navigated that journey?
Yes, because it is something that we're actually very passionate about. I know a lot of parents that go through things like this become advocates, for the disease or condition that their child has. And this is not in any way saying that we think that's wrong, but this was what was right for us and what we felt on our spirit, that we just weren't going to let her be defined by a name. And we are strong in our faith where we just feel like, the Lord says to, sorry, I'm getting choked up.
You're okay. Take your time.
So we're supposed to speak life over our children and not death. There's power in our words. So we want to live by that and we want to speak life over her. So we felt like labeling her with a diagnosis was speaking death over her. And that night that she was born, knowing she shouldn't have survived and that a miracle happened, we just thought we're not going to do that. We're going to trust that she has a purpose in this world and it's not to be a disease. So we just felt very passionately about not putting that name on her and putting that label on her.
The doctors always seemed more worried about having a diagnosis than we did. When we were in the NICU, it was, for us, it was more about just keeping her alive, getting her healthy and strong enough to come home, because we live an hour away from the NICU, and we got other children at home. And so mommy's going to the NICU 6-7 days a week. Daddy's going there 3-4 nights a week. And there was a lot of days we just would see each other in passing. When one comes home, the other leaves. And so, part of the reason we didn't focus on the diagnosis is because for us, it wasn't the end game. The end game was get her strong and healthy so we can get her home and we can raise her and help her become the wonderful little girl that she is. And like our one daughter said, we could become a family again, because it was almost a full year of an ordeal for us. And from the time we found out when Angie was pregnant to the time we got home was about 11 months. And so we physically, mentally, and emotionally, we were spent at the end of the 6 months in the NICU. And I think the doctors might have had a little mercy on us at that point, too. They know we couldn't handle much more of the NICU either.
I will say that once we actually did get a diagnosis when she was a year old. And I will say that there has been a serious blessing that has happened because of having that diagnosis. And that is finding the closed group on social media that is other parents that have children with the same diagnosis. That has been a wonderful blessing to connect with these parents. And it's a spectrum disorder. So, it's varying degrees of severity within, the birth defects that are associated with the diagnosis. I mean, you could just be all over the place. There are some that are very mild. There are some that are very severe. There are a lot of them that have passed away. So just having that support group, even though Mayah's case is unique and there's nobody else like her in the entire world, there are people similar to her. So that has been a wonderful blessing to see the pictures of those kids and to show Mayah the picture of those kids, because, Mayah doesn't see a lot of kids on ventilators and having trachs. So being able to have that family has been wonderful.
That's amazing. When we were talking before we started recording for the podcast, you had a quote I was trying to jot it down as you were saying it because it was resonating. And so this isn't exactly, but you were making reference to that you, before Mayah was born, you kind of lived in a bubble in that you had never seen this world that you're living in now, one where you at different stages have to watch your child suffer or struggle, and that going through that has opened your eyes. And I'm sure that community on Facebook has been a support during that season. But what for both of you, what has changed in your view of the world, in your view of life, your view of children? How has walking through these days with Mayah impacted that shift, that worldview shift that you referenced?
I will admit that I would have classified myself as a selfish person my whole life. Just very not thinking of others outside of my family unit, we take care of our own type of mentality. That has changed. My love for my fellow man, as you could say, has really changed since going through this journey with Mayah. Just the love and compassion that I feel, just the way things pull at my heart is just very different than what it had been previously.
Ryan, what about for you?
When I grew up, I was about 7-8 years old, somewhere around there. One of my younger sisters became sick. She was born healthy. She's about 1.5 years old, walking, doing all the normal things at that age, and she got sick. Wasn't life-threatening, but it changed her life and physical and mental handicaps. So I grew up with that in our household with my parents and other siblings. I think that helped me become strong or stay strong through all of this, especially for Angie and the rest of the family. But at the same time, when it's your own child, it's different. And when it's your own child and it's life-threatening challenges, it's really different. And it's scary at times. The one thing you learn through all this, it puts everything in perspective in life. The things you thought were important really aren't that important. Family is important, faith, family, and friends. Life is so precious. We've had other experiences in life and losing close friends and family that you really learn to appreciate the days you have, and no one is guaranteed tomorrow. And just those life experiences has helped our entire family put everything in perspective. And you just take it one day at a time.
We've talked about Mayah being a miracle, and that this baby that wasn't supposed to make it is now 5.5. And so I'm curious, what does life look like for her now? What does she love to do?
Well, right now, unfortunately, we're on a TV kick. So she likes to watch Tots on Disney Junior over and over again. She will tell me, I watch Tots. And it's just a battle. So Mayah had recently had surgery on her spine. So she was recovering for several weeks, and she was kind of immobile during that recovery. If we sat her upright to eat, she had to be in a neck brace, and she wasn't walking anymore and just kind of laying around. So she's a very busy, active little girl. So we defaulted to the television to keep her entertained, I guess, while she was recovering. So now we have the unfortunate side effect here where we're addicted to TV. So right now, because the weather is it's Ohio, so the weather is not nice. We're dealing with a lot of TV time, but typically Mayah loves to be outside. She has a tricycle, loves to ride her tricycle, loves to swing, chase her sisters around, and play on the playground. We have a utility vehicle. She loves to go and ride it with Daddy down the back lane to the creek. So yes, outside. She has a sign for it. Outside, outside, outside. It's one of the first signs that she learned, and it actually got annoying, and we wish that we didn't teach it to her because it was just constant, just outside, outside, outside. Like, right now, Mayah.
And sorry, go ahead.
The other thing she loves to do now that she's getting recovered from the surgery, she loves to play hide and go seek. So if you are not right next to her and you go in the kitchen to do something and she's in the TV room, she will yank her ventilator hose off and go hide, and you have to go find her. So, and there goes her alarms off and everything, and she gets disconnected and she just runs away, and you got to go find her. So we play a lot of hide and seek at times.
And her face when you do find her, her face is just so funny. She's just, just big smile, big cheesy smile. And she'll, you found me. And yeah, she's just so funny. And she'll say, I hide. I'm like, no, get back on your ventilator.
Hilarious and terrifying, I'm sure.
Yeah. She can go several minutes without the ventilator, but we don't like to try to push those limits.
Yeah. So that's, she's kind of got her prison break game going on there with the ventilator. That's funny. And you mentioned that she loves school. Tell us about what school's like for her.
Well, she goes half days to preschool, and she rides the bus in the morning. She has a terrible crush on her bus driver. We hear about him all morning when it's, Ted, is Ted here? So yes, she's a flirt. You put a boy in front of her, and it's just embarrassing the way she flirts with everybody. She's funny. Daddy does not like it.
we got problems ahead.
No, but she does great. She is very much into her routines, and if the teacher tries to stray from the routines, she will tell her about it. Like, we don't do that right now. So it's very cute. She's very, very regimented and loves her routines, but she does really well at school. We were obviously concerned about sending her to school. Just those fears of the kids not including her, being afraid of her, and how's this going to work if she can't talk to them? And they were completely unwarranted. These kids love her. They include her. They play with her. Like I said, I get to go with her to school once a week, so I get to witness it. And it's, you know, we're out on the playground, and it's Maya. Hey, Maya, come play with us. Maya, do you want to go down the slide? And Maya. I mean, they love her, and it's amazing. And you can't not love her with her personality. She's just so in your face with it. She will win anybody over. So they've all embraced her. Her teacher is wonderful and has learned sign language and has taught the other kids in the class sign language. So it's been a really great experience. But next year is kindergarten. So next year is all day, every day. So that will be a change.
Yeah.
But I'm sure all those fears will be gone too. She'll prove me wrong, and she'll just be amazing.
I was just getting ready to ask, do you think that's going to be a harder transition for mom and dad or for her?
He can attest to her getting on the bus, and I cried the entire day, her first day of preschool. I was not ready. He teases that we have an unhealthy addiction. So me and Maya, like we're inseparable. So this will be very hard on mommy.
It'll be harder on mommy than it will be Maya. Maya's ready.
There's
no slowing her down. I do think early on, she's going to have to build up her stamina to be able to handle full days. And so that's all part of growing up for her. So it'll just take time. And if she gets, and we've had discussions with the school already, if you get to lunchtime or halfway through the afternoon and she's done, it's kindergarten, and you know we can bring her home, and she's pretty smart, so hopefully she won't fall behind or anything. But it's, again, with her, a lot of things are a balance in life, and when she gets tired and wore out, we're just going to have to bring her home so she doesn't get sick or run down by overdoing it.
Sure.
The team at school is just wonderful. All the therapists that we work with and the intervention specialists. We actually just had a big meeting. There was 10 of us there, and it's just so awesome to feel all that support and love for her. And they truly want to see her succeed and want to put everything in place for her. So I feel like we've got a good plan for for kindergarten, and we're going to bring the wheelchair to school. It's a power chair. I did not allow it to come to school with her in preschool because I had concerns for her little classmates getting run over by her in her power chair. So I wasn't having it, but they have assured me that they will supervise these things in the hallway so that, you know, going from the classroom to the gym or the cafeteria, she doesn't exert all of her energy walking and then have nothing left for the classroom. So we're going to have the wheelchair there to try to help with that, to conserve some energy, because it's just work for Maya to breathe. And, you know, like all the things we take for granted don't come easy to her. So breathing takes a lot of energy. Her walking takes a lot of energy. She wears braces on her feet for club feet treatment. And then there's some instability in her hips, and there's just a laundry list of things going on with her that make life difficult, and she's found a way to persevere, but it's not without effort.
Sure. I'm sorry.
When she goes to school, Angie goes with her, the nurses go with her, so we got great nursing help. And so while she's at school, she does have someone close to her to help get around. And like Angie said, we're a little concerned about her running people over with the wheelchair or getting somebody's little foot or something. But with the nurses or somebody close by, you know, hopefully they can help guide her along and be there with her throughout the day.
Sure. And those kids will learn the hard way if they have to. If they get their feet under the wheel, they'll probably only do it once, right?
Yep. Yeah, she may end up giving them rides. You know, the way kids are. She's gonna probably give all of them rides. Yeah, they won't want to walk that long hallway to lunch. So she's gonna give them rides.
Thank you for listening. This is part 1 of 2 episodes about Mayah. Now, I say this a lot, but you won't want to miss part 2. You will leave that episode with a brighter day. Don't believe me? Well, then just go have a look at Mayah's smile in her video. It is captivating, and so is her story when you hear it from the people who know and love her most. If you'd like to shout love for Mayah, well, that is simple. Just go to our website, goshout.love, and shop around or simply donate. Every purchase in April will help with the expenses related to getting Mayah specialized care. As Josh mentioned, you can also start a subscription and shout love every month for the feature kiddo and their family. This is an easy and effective way to make an impact on someone's life. Please also share this podcast with someone who you think could use positive and authentic conversations like the ones we aim to produce. Also, feel free to comment on the platform you are listening on. Basically, I'm suggesting that you become an active participant in the Go Shout Love community, one that is trying to connect people, share stories, and go shout love. Thank you.